Welcome to Bridging Gaps, the business podcast sharing the challenges and stories of fellow business owners.
Hello and welcome. I'm Deborah Levitt, your host for Bridging Gaps, the business podcast. This week, I'm in conversation with Leigh, the owner and founder of Two Ducks, a wonderful award-winning boutique specializing in unique gifts, homeware, and fashion from some of Europe's best designers and makers. It's a really wonderful, warm shop, and I'm really delighted to have Claire joining me today. Please note that Claire and I met at the Worplesdon Place Hotel, and this means that there is some background noise and various voices and things you may hear in the background. Towards the very end, you might also hear some background music. It seemed that they were determined to add some atmosphere to our conversation, but I don't think it'll distract too much from our conversation. Please join me in welcoming Claire to the show. Hi, Claire.
Hello. Hi, Deborah. Morning.
How are you doing today?
I am very well. It's quite nice. We're actually talking live in Worplesdon today.
We are. We're in Worplesdon Place, tucked
Yeah.
into a little corner. So if you hear footprints, it's not Claire running away all going well.
It's the staff, we promise.
So Claire, as I mentioned, you run Two Ducks, and it would be great if you could just tell people a little bit about the shop and what you do in terms of the shop at this point in time.
Sure. I like to call, I suppose, Two Ducks a woman's store. I mean, it's a bit of a woman's lifestyle store, I suppose. So everything, hopefully, that women love shopping for. So handbags, shoes, fashion, gifts, candles, jewellery, all that kind of thing. But with a little sort of twist in that it's not the kind of thing you would see everywhere you go. So hopefully you won't walk into us and think, oh, I've seen that everywhere else. How boring. But we try and put real effort into making the products a bit different. And I am officially titled director of my business, but that's partly just because we became a limited company at Christmas. So I've got a posher title than I used to have. But really, I'm just general dog's body to do everything, but also growing the business, taking it forward. But I do quite a bit of the day-to-day planning. I do all the buying for the shop, do all the research for that, manage the staff. We've got 6 staff at the moment. A bit of everything, like often business owners do, I guess.
Yeah, I think people coming into a new venture, whether it's a retail business or a service industry, are sometimes shocked by how much they have to do, whereas they had the one vision of, I'm going to go out and, have a shop.
Yes. How hard can it be?
Exactly.
Really hard.
So how did you start? Because you didn't start off in the shop. You had a career in marketing. So do you want to tell us just a little bit about that, and then how you came to the decision to move into having Two Ducks and selling?
Yeah. I mean, I had a dream of having a gift shop for quite a few years, but I guess I saw it as something I might do in retirement or something at some point in the future when I live by the sea. But some friends of mine sort of began starting off their own business as opening a wine bar in Woking, which some people might know, Cellar Manuel. And I was really inspired by them actually taking action to get their business going. And I thought, right, now or never, and that, I've got to sort of start it. But I didn't have any money, any savings as such. So I had to kind of create it into existence via social media is really how I started, mainly on Twitter, actually. And I eventually got a small loan out from just on a credit card. I didn't go to the bank. Mm-hmm. And bought some product, because product is the kind of products I pick is my expertise, I guess. It's what I've always loved, finding different things, going to all gift shops, galleries, craft fairs, and finding things that people don't know about, haven't seen everywhere, and pulling them together. And so I worked out what I could buy for that amount of money. And I started by holding gift parties in people's houses, so mainly friends or friends of friends, and on the run up to Christmas.
So how did you leave your existing job to start doing this, or were you running it in parallel?
Running it in parallel, yeah. Still needed to pay the bills.
Those bills just won't go away.
No, I think like probably quite a lot of women, after I'd had kids, it's challenging in terms of doing a normal corporate job. And I was a marketing manager for a law firm and trying to cram a full-time job into 3 days, which is effectively what you do working part-time. And I thought, this isn't what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. Either I make the change now. And so I just started it off in the background of the job. So I'd be doing it in the evenings or in my lunch break. I'd be posting a bit on social media, doing a bit of research. And that just gradually built.
So how did you move from running, in parallel with your existing job and running gift parties, with that small loan? How did you make that transition to actually having a physical shop?
Yes. How did I do that? Well, I probably did the gift parties for about 6 months.
Okay.
And I mentioned earlier friends of ours who'd started a wine bar. And as we were kind of having chats over a bottle of wine in the garden, we were saying, what if when you opened your wine bar, I could do a pop-up shop in the wine bar to test the business? And they, at that point, were up for the idea, albeit a slightly drunken conversation.
But you made a note of it.
But I made a note and reminded them the next day. And so I did the gift parties till November, and then they were launching their wine bar, and we agreed to give it a try. I did it as 2 days a week, so Friday and a Saturday in the wine bar. And so it was quite a tricky thing to do, because they're obviously running their business, which is new, and they're launching, and their focus is on it being a success, and they've both given up jobs to start that. And at that point, I gave up my job.
Okay, so it was still really quite early on.
Yeah. So I knew I was only doing 2 days, but then sort of online sales through Facebook and things as well. And I was kind of carrying all my products in and out each day, because there's nowhere to store them in the wine bar, really. They needed all their storage space. So we'd have to come up the back of this retail business up the track, and it was a nightmare trying to bring all this stuff in each day, set it up, and then make sure it was packed away and out by the time their evening customers started to trickle in for a glass of wine. And then it was a fine balance between not kind of disturbing customers and making them feel like they needed to buy something, but also equally making them aware you were there and why you were there, and just being friendly. And I, to get awareness up, I'd be out the front of the wine bar talking to people, giving them flyers, and you just have to really put yourself out there. And we did build from there, and I learned a lot about actually just being on the high street, displaying gifts, people's buying behaviours. And at that point, within about 6 months, I got offered the opportunity to share a permanent shop with another business, which was in St. John's village, which is where we are now. And a lot of people were like, you don't want to be in St. John's, there's nothing out there, there's nobody out there, you should be in the town centre. And I was like, well, actually, I think it could be a good move, because people don't have to come into town, and there's free parking, and you just have to get the customers to come to you.
Yeah, exactly. Once you've convinced them that you're worthwhile.
Yeah. And so I took that risk, but it was still fairly low risk, because I wasn't a head leaseholder.
Yes.
I was a sub-leasee, and I could kind of pull out within a month's notice. So
as you say, not a huge commitment.
I wasn't saying I'm taking on a whole shop. It's a 5-year lease. It's going to cost me 20 grand to refit it. I had to fit it out. But I had sort of the back part of the shop. And to me, it was massive at the time, because I'd just been operating out of a box.
But you had to carry everywhere.
Yeah, I was such a relief to be able to put all my stuff down. And it was lovely having that little space. And at the front of the store, the main part of the store, was a deli.
Okay, so very different
business.
Yes.
And the deli was set up by Seasons at the time. It was a cafe 2 doors down, and the deli was a smaller part of their business, and they decided to open it up to a bigger part.
Right.
So they were already established coffee shop, so they had an existing client base they could bring with them. And we worked with them, I think, for about 6-7 months, and unfortunately it just didn't work for them. Things started to go downhill, and you know, it's like with deli stuff, it's all fresh.
Yes.
If you don't have the footfall, it's going off, you're losing money. Yeah, they just encountered quite a few problems, and I was thinking, what on earth am I going to do here? Am I going to sort of move to a smaller shop and have my own place? Yeah, it was real risk time and decision time.
Because was it going well for you, or were their problems actually impacting the ability to get people in for you as well?
Our piece of the shop was going well, and I think they were finding that difficult too, because people were coming in and going, "Oh, I'm just here to see 2 ducks," and walking straight down to the end, and I was like, "Oh dear, this is embarrassing." But also, yes, there was a negative impact from the fact that you could see things weren't working for them. Things were not fresh anymore. There was less on the shelves, and it was starting to not look good for me.
Yes.
So it needed to change. And at that point, I did start looking at a few other venues. But then my husband geniusly suggested, why don't we take over the whole shop? And I was like, what? But we we did that, but in a sort of transition. So we ended up initially swapping places with them.
Oh, right.
So they decided to continue, or try and continue, but at a smaller level, and we were growing. So it was like we kind of moved from a third, 2/3 to a half and a half. And then it was more like we had 3/4, and then we eventually took the final quarter back, and they just moved out altogether.
So it was, from your perspective, a nice way to transition. Obviously not so nice for them in that it
wasn't easy, but it meant that we could settle into the space and invest with a bit more time rather than a massive upfront loan. And we could just buy, because mainly the shop's decorated with vintage pieces, industrial pieces of furniture, so we were just picking up bits as we went, and styling the shop that way.
And is it the shop that you're in now?
Yeah, so we've stayed there.
And it is a lovely shop, and the location, as you say, it's lovely in the village, and walking in, there's just a very inviting feeling to it.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So how did you, as you were making that transition and you're having those conversations with them, which are obviously difficult conversations, because somebody else is suffering while you're not, but how did you manage that, I guess, increase? So you've gone from a box,
yeah, pretty much,
which you love, it'll heft around with you everywhere you go, to part of a shop, to more and more space. How did you decide or figure out how you were going to fill that space? Was it more of the same, or were you then experimenting with different products and different things?
Definitely experimenting. Even during the time, because it'd probably been a year since I'd started with the gift parties before I started to gain more of the shop. So I was learning what people really liked, and you quickly learn, because of finances, what your best sellers are and what people want to buy, and you kind of increase those ranges, because that's the surest bet you've got that's going to bring money in. And then experiment with new things and see where it takes you. And you learn lessons very quickly. If you've spent money and it's not shifting, that's a very quick lesson learned. And I guess I was quite surprised when I very first got handbags in, because they flew out the door.
Oh, really?
And I was like, okay, women really like handbags. And I wasn't all that fashion savvy myself, and jewellery as well. But getting in more contemporary and costume jewellery, I was going for the more crafty market initially, and handmade. And actually, that's not what my audience in the area want.
They want the more sophisticated.
Yeah, and the more kind of costume easy pieces that they can give as a gift, or they can get for an outfit to wear every day. I learned kind of which areas are most profitable, but that was a lot of experimenting.
So when you buy something in, so you think, okay, I think this looks great, think I'm going to get this in, and then you discover it doesn't sell.
Yeah.
Are you essentially stuck with it, or do any of the suppliers do
sale or return?
That's the one.
I did quite a lot of sale or return when I first started, because we were often using handmade goods and artists, and so they're willing to do that to help each other out. But as you move forward and you get bigger and you have more and more suppliers, it's actually a pain to have sale or return, because it's just so much admin. You have to add all up the sales, pay them dividends at the end of the month. And so now I have hardly any sale or return. What was I talking about?
No, we were talking about sale or return.
Completely. Sale or return.
And what you do when you discover something doesn't sell.
Yes, that's right. Thank you so much. Just had a total blank. I tend to, if I have given it a good go, I will reduce it. And you can then tell whether it was just a price point thing or whether it really was what you picked was bad. And if it was bad, then you reduce it a lot more. And you just try and shift it and get it out the store, because that's money that's just tied up and sat there.
And presumably it's money not just in terms of you spent money to bring it in, but it's space as well that you can't use for something else.
Yeah.
So it's kind of costing you from both angles.
Yes, exactly. You need to kind of utilise every bit of space. And, you often get approaches from people who are craft people or artists and want to kind of hang their stuff on your walls, and it's like, that's a nice idea, but it's such a kind of specific taste. So few people of your customers are going to love one artist enough to make hanging their work on your wall actually worthwhile financially. And so we tend to say, no, we keep it for our own displays.
And do you find that people, is that hard to say no to them when you know that there's somebody who's, trying to
it's
build
horrible.
their business?
I found it really difficult, that part. So there's a lot of people that just walk in off the street, or they know that you have, especially in the past, sold handmade and British made, and we've kind of transitioned away from that because of the price points, unfortunately. And they will come in and they might have a bag of goodies with them, and I think my problem with it is oftentimes they've not done any research. So they've not looked into what the retail world is like generally, and not looked into what it's about to sell in a shop, what the margins should be, what their wholesale prices should be. They've literally got a hobby at home where they make stuff, and they kind of come in planning to let you take a percentage. And it's like, if I was tiny, I might be able to do that. But when you're a certain size, you can't work like that. You'd end up with 500 tiny suppliers all taking a tiny percentage, and
just too complicated.
It's far too complicated. I also find it incredibly awkward if someone puts a load of products in front of me that they've made personally, and I have to say no to their face, which is why I have a section on my website which describes the process I need them to go to be stocked in the shop, which generally starts off with an email with pictures of their products, because then it's not that face-to-face rejection.
Well, and that's better for you and for them, because one, it's not the difficult conversation, but it's also that they're not wasting time, and you're not wasting time when the picture has, because you might get a picture that's not great quality, but you can tell immediately that it's not the right thing, or it's not great quality, and you go, well, actually, though, I can see something in that. It's worth them coming in or following up the next step.
And there have been a few where I've done that. We've got a really lovely lady who makes cards in Chobham, and so they're sort of hand printed and they're beautiful. And I love stocking her bits, and I have a really good relationship with her, and she pops in with her new ranges, but she arranges to pop in.
Yes.
So when I'm in the shop, there's this assumption that I'm just stood there doing
You're just waiting for me to come in and sell to you rather than you selling to me.
Yeah, but obviously as a business owner, you're constantly working on your computer and doing things, and you may have appointments with reps coming in. You're trying to keep awareness of all the customers in the shop, and often this person comes in with bits and has no awareness of anything else going on, but probably feeling nervous that they're coming to ask you. So,
and that's the thing, isn't it? Is sometimes when we're nervous or worried about something, we're just completely caught up in how we're feeling.
Absolutely.
And as you say, oblivious to what's actually going on around you. And
I had one woman come in and she showed me her stuff, and then I had to go and see a customer, and she was so upset. She ran out crying.
Oh gosh.
I mean, because I couldn't pay her attention the whole time, and her nerves got the better of her, and I felt really awful for her.
But as you say, it's not personal, it's not directed, it's just it's the reality that you're in the shop at that point to be serving your customers. Yeah. And
also the financial reality of handmade gifts, especially in this country. Wages are higher in this country. By the time someone's handmade a gift and paid for all the bits of it, the wool or what have you, the price point that we need and for customers to actually buy, it just doesn't work. And you end up with a £50 scarf or a £25 tiny little scarf. You can't do it.
Because I know I did a few years ago, I did some jewellery designs, and which I really enjoyed. And then I also have done, and I still do a little bit on the side, but some fabric design. And that was my realization, was that I couldn't go in and offer to sell it because, one, I couldn't afford to hold stock, which meant that my price point was really high.
Yeah.
The places that I was speaking to were, I did want it to be British made and all of that, but you put those costs together and it's a hefty price point. Now, I know that things have changed, and I know there are another few options that I now have, which mean I could do it at a cheaper price point.
Yeah.
But initially, and then that was without even including my time.
Yeah, exactly. Often they're not including their time.
Exactly. So then you're working for nothing, because what you're covering.
A lot of crafters do, I think.
That's it.
And then, of course, for us as a shop, we reached the VAT threshold a couple of years ago, I think, and we have to add VAT onto all our products. Whereas before, I was able to get away with some pricing because I didn't have VAT on it. But now, 20% VAT, it then takes it even further.
Exactly.
As a price point above.
And it's not like if you're in a service business where your clients might be able to reclaim that. When it's a gift shop,
they're taking it out
exactly. It's part of their cost to get it.
And it's their joy money. It's the money they're spending on the things they really want to spend on.
Exactly.
Not the things they have to spend on. Yeah.
So how did you find that? I know you said that when you started in the wine bar that you learned about, a little bit about displaying things, but going into a shop and actually getting things displayed and that, because I'm assuming that there's actually a skill to that, and because you always see things, adverts for window dressers, and I think I could do that, and then I look at a window and I think, no, I couldn't.
Well, I guess I think I can be quite creative, and I love displays, and I will play around with them for quite some time before I think, yes, that looks right, and you can just get a feel for visually how, and you have to, I think I've learned a lot because we also now hire a visual merchandiser to do our windows, professional. So she does Topshop, she does Laura Ashley, she does various people, and she does Two Ducks. So she's an independent, and she comes round, and she might just do our window, but I will give her a brief and an idea of the kind of products I want to display and the kind of theme I might want, and she will come up with some crazy ideas. And that's increased footfall and revenue. So it's a cost, but it's a worthwhile cost.
And how did you reach that decision? Was it a combination of you could now afford it and justify it, or was it recognizing that actually they could be better?
It's a bit of both. It's realizing you're so busy as a business owner, you're not always going to have the time to do. And I'm not actually, she's like a little spider monkey. She can climb in my window, and she's just amazing. She just gets round and pins things up, and I can't do that. I'd be falling over and banging my head, and it'd just be a disaster. So I didn't have the right skill. And it wasn't something I was going to spend loads of time learning, but actually I've learnt lots from her, so that during the month when she's not there doing a display, I know much better how to display my products. But it was a case of the business having to be healthy enough for me to afford her. Definitely didn't have her at the beginning. but partly I've learnt one of the big things is keeping things off the floor. Because we found if we had more stock than we would normally have, say we were stocking up for Christmas or we were stocking up for an occasion like Mother's Day, things would start to go on the floor because we'd have too much to put on the tables. But your eye level and your eyesight for buying is eye level. I'm trying to show Deborah with my hands, but it's not really very useful.
Claire is showing me it's at eye level.
It's at eye level.
It's not at floor level.
Not at floor level. So we've just stopped putting things on the floor altogether now. It's like either it goes out the back and it comes out when there's space to put it up higher, or we build upwards on displays. So we might have a table, but we'll put a wine crate on it to be able to draw the eye upwards.
So it's being more creative about how you use that space.
Use the levels. Because also flat tables are really boring.
Yes.
So yeah, I've learnt a lot from Sheila. She's brilliant.
Which is fantastic. And because I have always wondered, I guess, how people, when you walk into a shop and you just look at things, and as I say, apart from that fleeting moment, if I could do that, and then the realization that I couldn't, it's almost, how do they come up with that idea? How do they know how to put it all in place? And
it does take a long time. It takes a lot of changing around, swapping around. It's not like you have an instant idea and do it. We have one customer who works quite high up in Harvey Nicks, and she comes in not really regularly but regularly enough, and she says you do brilliant displays. I love them. So we thought, that's
that's a good compliment to have. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when you started off by yourself, carting everything around, you expanded into the shop, and taking more and more of that up. What about staff and the decisions initially to take on somebody and then growing to where you are now, where you have 6 staff members? How has that been, I guess, both from a letting go of things because you're now depending on other people, and that extra expenditure and finding the right people?
I would say staffing is probably the biggest challenge I face. Just getting it right and getting the right personalities to trust with your brand and to trust that they'll give the service to your customers that you give, that they get an equal level of experience from all your staff. And it's very time consuming. I don't think I ever realised. I mean, I've managed staff within my corporate career, but there are support mechanisms there, and you're not the one at the final part of the decision process.
Yes.
There's always a boss above you who helps you, and there's an HR person in the background, and it's your baby.
Yeah,
so
it's much more personal to you.
So it's far more difficult to have conversations about if someone's not performing for your business or not treating your business well, and it's kind of getting that level of consistency across staff when they may be busy as well. They have kids, they have jobs, they have maybe other jobs they're doing. So and I've had someone on long-term sick this year, and that was a big challenge for me. I realised we didn't have so much resilience as a business, and I had to hire. Hence, we've hired in more ad hoc people. But that was something where I had to seek HR expertise. So I got an HR consultant in to help me with that, because I just didn't know enough about it, and I wanted to do the right thing, but I needed to do the right thing for the business, and it was complex.
And are you finding that now, as you're looking forward and you're looking at, I know you want to grow and to go online more, things like that, are you finding that your approach to recruiting is changing?
Yes, definitely. I think you can easily bumble along as a small business and hire people that you meet and that are your friends, or that you kind of know they do a bit of this and a bit of that, and it works at the time. But actually you get to a stage with the business where you realise, okay, I need something different here, and you establish what those needs are and whether the staff you've got in place are going to take you to that place in the future. It's a big consideration, and I think you just have to be a bit more professional about it and really go through a bit more of a formal recruitment process where it might be a bit painful to start with and a bit long-winded or longer-winded, but gets you a better result in the end.
And I guess having that clarity about where you want to go helps you to then... Sorry, it sounds like somebody's washing the windows outside. I don't know if our listeners can hear that or not.
They might well be.
But helps you to then know what you're looking for in terms of, when you're recruiting. And I would think that that's, valuable. Whereas, as you say, when you're filling a gap or you just need some help, it's easy to hire the person that seems right at the time without that longer view.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's also a whole load of legislation for employees, which I wasn't necessarily aware of. And as a business where you want to show people you have integrity, you want to keep to those rules, and but also making sure the business survives and is okay. So, yeah, it's a fine balancing act, really.
And I do think that when you're a small business of any sort, that employing is always a big challenge because of that legislation, because of those responsibilities, because, if somebody goes off sick, your responsibilities in terms of pay towards them and, pregnancy and paternity and all of those different things which come into it that you are ultimately responsible for, and that it is quite easy to see just the immediate, to see, okay, well, actually, if I get somebody in, I just need to pay them this much, and to not be aware of your legal responsibilities.
Yeah. And, even people who might be doing 1 day a month for you are still accruing holiday pay. It's quite amazing how much you do have to pay out for things that I never would have had a clue about. And do you pay people a lunch break? And, just strange things that you'd have never dealt with in your normal career.
No, because as you say, that there was somebody dealing with all of that, and it just happened, and you didn't have to worry about it. And you might think, well, I'll just apply common sense to it, but common sense may or may not fit with the law.
Yeah, exactly. I have discovered that. But that's where I think, and one of the very key things I think for any small business is getting a support network around you that helps advise you on the things you don't know about or understand. And whilst that might involve spending more money, ultimately it's going to help you grow in the long term. And so I have made quite a few investments throughout the years in other people to support the business, or courses, things that I think are worth doing.
And do you find, or do you feel that, have you made those decisions because you've gone through a painful point and realized that you need help? Or is it a mixture that some of them are, there was a pain and you've realized now you need somebody to support you in that, and some are more about foresight, realizing, so like your vision.
Visual merchandising.
Thank you.
Yeah. I knew what you were talking about.
That you think, okay, actually, I know that somebody can do this better, and therefore I'm aiming for that when the time and the money is right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it probably a mixture of both. I've definitely been in crisis point and then thought, I need some help. I can't do this anymore by myself. And I'm lucky in that my husband is a very supportive person, and he is a brilliant sort of sub-coach for me, coaching for free. But there's limits to his knowledge as well. He doesn't know about every single aspect of a small business. And there's a point at which we're both banging our heads against the wall and going, okay, we need someone else.
And how did you find, or how do you find those dips when it's not even, it may or may not be the business dipping, but the emotional dips where you're dipping, and and coping with that, because you've obviously still got to have your customer face when you're speaking to them. You've got your staff face where, again, you want to present. You don't want to necessarily let them in on all of the details. So how do you cope with those dips?
I do find that very difficult, actually, because I'm a local business and I'm known in the area. And I've had to withdraw from my personal Facebook quite a lot because I can't just give opinions about things and I can't just say what I think, because it has an impact. And a lot of my customers follow me as friends, my staff, some do. And it's quite restrictive. Whereas you used to just spout off on Facebook about this, that, and the other. Now I'm like, I can't say anything to anyone. But my husband usually gets the brunt of it. So it's finding other outlets to help you. And I also have found that I've sort of gone into fitness a bit as a way of coping with the stress and being able to cope better with those low points. So I do kind of a boot camp on a Monday, and I work with a guy called Steve Keywood, who's quite sort of big in the area. And he has a program of fitness and exercises and diet and I don't mean being on a diet, I just mean a healthy diet that have really helped me and given me so much more energy and ability to cope with the stresses. They're still there for sure, but I feel better able to deal with them because of it.
So they give you the tools essentially to get through them.
Yeah.
And to...
But I might have a whole week of feeling absolutely rubbish and really low. And there's definitely a customer face that I have to put on. But with some customers, I know them so well, I can tell them, and actually they're really supportive and they share back with you. And that's really lovely. And I'm quite an honest person. I'm quite honest on my social media. And so I have actually opened up to customers and said, gee, I'm having a really crap time here. I haven't seen any of you for ages. What's going on? Be lovely to see you. And they respond amazingly to that openness. So I'm lucky in that sense. I have them coming in, bringing me coffees, and and they kind of realise the business needs the support back as well, which is lovely, kind of reciprocal relationship.
Yeah, which is wonderful, because I think it's easy, and I know I've been guilty of this, that you kind of recognize that there's something, in your village or your town that you really like, and then suddenly it's gone.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, oh, well, that's a real shame. But then realize that actually you never went there, or maybe you only went there the first time. And that without that support, of course, it isn't going to survive. I
mean, we're a very day-to-day business, and cash flow is definitely king. And if people aren't visiting you, even buying something small, then your business just is in a real crisis point, because the money you need is day to day. And I've, in the 4.5 years I've been in the shop, seen 2 or 3 businesses close just in a small village. And it might be that they weren't the right need for the people there, they weren't the right products. It could easily be that. But it's so easy to happen.
Yeah.
And businesses are so close to the bone.
Well, and I know something that I realized, through my hairdresser again, is the pressure. So in my mind, if I was going to rent premises, I kind of thought of it as renting a house. And that I would basically, I would rent the house if there was a problem on it. It was the landlord's fault. What I hadn't realized is that actually when you're taking on a lease, quite often you're taking on responsibility for all of the things about the space. And so there's this extra cost and responsibility. Yeah,
the landlord's not responsible for a lot, actually. We have to do all the fire alarms, get smoke alarms in, any burglar alarms. We have to paint the place. We'd have to replace the flooring. We have to do all the DIY. We pay the bills, the insurance for the property. We even have to pay a license just to be able to play music in the shop. So it's like £350 a year just to put on a song. But it's an important part of the atmosphere in the shop, so you've got to pay for it. But yes, there are an amazing amount of costs involved in having a retail outlet. I can understand why so many shops don't survive.
Especially if they don't realise those costs. Because as I said, I was really surprised.
No, I don't think I did when I started.
And do you think, did you learn about it as you were expanding your space and that, so you knew what you were getting into?
I knew a lot more of what I was getting into because we did it slowly.
Mm-hmm.
I think if I'd have just gone straight into a shop, although I would have probably never ventured into a shop the size I've got, because I would have never thought I could even fill it full of stuff. But yeah, the rents are quite high. And of course, you've got your staff costs on top of that and a whole load of other things as well.
Yes.
I won't bore you with, but in a way, we're better off in a village location. If you have a shop in a town, you're looking at double the rent plus all the service charges and things like that too.
So it's just all extra things which
you
you
have to look
cover.
at. You can't just think, oh, well, we need to be in the town centre. People are looking at the cost of parking.
Absolutely.
And
the ease of parking as well.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference.
And the amount of people that come in and say, oh, I'm so relieved I don't have to go into town. I could just pop in and see you. And that's nice to be able to offer that.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's easy and it's friendly as well. And I know there are places where I think, oh, I just can't be bothered going in and having to deal with figuring out where to park. And I just want to quickly go and do something and it won't be quick.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
So would you, if somebody came to you and said, I want to start a shop, would you say run? Or what advice would you give them to help them to, understand the pitfalls, the dangers, as well as the positives?
I'd say just really do your research. Research the area, research the parking, things you wouldn't even potentially think about. Is there a coffee shop next door that's going to attract other people? Or is there a coffee shop in the village that people already come to? Are there other things going on in that village? Is there a village hall? Does it have groups coming to it? Is the product that you're selling, if you worked out over a year what you could sell of it, is that going to pay your rent and you, and possibly staff? It's just like you do, but Deborah, probably planning.
Yes.
Planning ahead and doing your research. And as I say, thinking properly about recruitment. If you recruit someone, really give it some thought. Look at the future of the business. Have a good bank behind you, someone who's going to support you, someone who's going to be willing to give you an overdraft that you need to keep your cash flow running. We've recently changed banks and we've got a good bank and I've got a good relationship with them. And that makes a difference.
Because I know that sometimes, I know with my current bank, it was kind of when you met them, it was like, no, we're here for you and here's my number. And then you discover that actually it's a central number and you never ever get through to the person.
To them again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which I think is really, sad because that personal relationship and being able to talk something through makes
People
a huge
miss
difference.
that, I think, with their banks, definitely. I bank with their NetWest.
Okay.
So I have Amanda Shovelton is my contact, and I'm lucky enough that she actually bothers to catch up with me and have coffee with me and find out how the business is going and making sure I know about all the support that's there. And that's another thing, actually. I now belong to BIRA, which is the British Independent Retailers Association. Okay. So again, I think if you're at a point where you can afford that, and it is obviously another cost, but they've been a great support for me, and it's like a group. Their strapline is independent, full stop, together, full stop.
Right.
Which I love, because you do feel like you're part of a little family. They all know what you're going through. You can chat with them, share pains and challenges and successes, and that's what we recently got nominated.
Yes.
For the award. So that was really exciting, and going to the conference and just talking to all your peers, and it was great.
And learning from them and finding out what they're going through as well.
Yeah.
So, and that, actually, I'm glad you mentioned about the award. because I'd forgotten I was going to ask you about those. So you've won and been in the shortlist for a number of awards.
Yeah,
so one, that must feel absolutely wonderful.
Yes.
And two, I guess that's another way of putting yourself out there, isn't it?
Yeah.
And how does that feel? And how does it, how do you feel when you are recognized, as I said, whether it's as a shortlist finalist or whether it's winning?
Yeah, I love awards. They're great fun most of the time. I mean, there's so many that you could apply for. You do kind of get a bit bombarded and you think, well, what have I got time to do and what would be really worth doing? And some of them, different processes, some of them are applying and answering a load of questions.
Right.
That give evidence for why you should win this and supporting documents and all, and it's quite a long, timely process. And then others like the Muddy Stiletto Awards, which is quite recent. That's more engaging with your followers to vote for you and hoping that they want to, not that you're just twisting their arm. But both are good for different reasons, and I like the Muddy Stilettos because you are talking to customers and it's their chance to give a little back and to support you back, and it's nice to see them really like gunning for you to win. And we didn't win this year's, we won last year's. So we were a bit disappointed, but we came second, and the guys who won had a chain of 5 stores.
Oh wow!
So I was like, well, we did pretty
5
well
times as many people.
Yeah. So no, I was still really pleased with that. And it's something to talk to customers about when they come in, and people who don't know you. It lends the business a certain credibility.
And also it gives you that extra, so somebody may never have heard of Two Ducks, but then if they see the Muddy Stilettos and they go, oh, well, actually, they're second this year, they were first last year.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I didn't know they were in St. John's Village, so I'm going to pop along.
Yeah.
So it gives you that different opportunity to reach a different audience as well.
It all adds to your persona out in the public. If people are looking at you as a stranger and they're looking at your social media, they'll be looking at how many followers has she got and what the reviews are and what does TripAdvisor say. Well, they might not check all those things out, but it's all those different touch points that customer face that help give you a better reputation, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess it gives you, as you said, that credibility and that authority that you were recognised for what you're doing. So. And
the one at Bira was a national competition.
Oh, wow.
So it was UK Independent Retail Business of the Year. And so it was across the whole country. So that was really exciting to be in the final 8. And although I never expected to win, and we didn't win, but we were highly commended. So we were picked out and recognised for our application being really interesting and original and the business being good. So that was just amazing for me.
As you say, national
I didn't need to
award.
win. I was like, wow.
Exactly. It's a huge, it says a huge amount, doesn't it? As you say, the kudos and the excitement and being recognised would be, amazing.
And the women who won it were brilliant. And they have 5 boutiques and sort of lifestyle stores, very similar to what we do, actually. They were friends, school friends, 2 school friends. And they've done that over 12 years. I mean, incredible. And really positive women. And I talked to them afterwards and I said, really enjoyed your talk. And I've asked one of them to be my mentor.
Oh, fantastic.
So it's like, you don't need to be jealous of these people. It's like, you can engage with them and use their support. And so, I was talking to her yesterday, actually.
Oh, wonderful.
So, one day we may be there.
Well, there's still time. It's only been 4 years, and you started off from running parties.
Yes.
And where do you want to take the business?
I guess our next step is online, because we have a lot of customers that can't get in regularly, and they're working, they've got commitments, but they know we have things that go quite quickly, and the online will allow them to actually just reserve stuff and pay for it and have it there. and they can do click and collect. But we've also got a bit of a wider audience that follow us through Facebook and just want to build that so it can support the business. And who knows how much that will grow and change, or whether we'll realise that's too difficult to do because of all the postage and packaging, and there isn't a post office in our village, and there's all those things you've got to think about. But I want to try that before I start thinking about more shops,
right,
in more areas.
So go down the online, experiment with that, see where it leads you.
Yeah, I mean, there's part of me that I would love to have one of these stores where you have a bit of everything. So you have a gift shop and a coffee shop combined, and it's a real experience. But I'm not in the position to do that. I don't know yet. I don't have a clue how to run a coffee shop. So
it's a whole nother learning experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
And why 2 ducks?
Why is it called 2 ducks? Yes, I get asked that a fair bit, funnily enough. It was because when I was dreaming about having a gift shop, I decided I would ask my daughter to name the shop. And I decided whatever she said, I would make it the name. I may have revised that if she said something else, but she basically said, call it Ducks, Mummy. And because she was 2 years old, I made it 2 ducks.
Okay.
And then when we got the designer in to do the logo, she kind of really woven in the mother-daughter relationship. Right. So the one duck is clearly a mummy duck, and there's a little duck next to it. Of course, my son came along and he's like, what am I?
You're an egg that we can't see yet.
You're the other shop that I might get one day. Name it after you. Yeah, so it came from her.
Oh, that's really sweet.
And I think it's one of those words that a lot of children, it's one of their first words.
Okay.
Because it's phonetically easy to say.
And I guess if they're seeing it in books and things as well, or out and about.
People go and feed the ducks. And it's quite nice because we're next to the canal, and there's always a couple of ducks on the canal.
So it all ties in.
It all somehow ties in.
Who knew that a 2-year-old would know this?
Yeah, she's incredible insight. She's now nearly 9. Yeah.
And how do you balance that? So we've talked a little bit about your husband and the support that he gives you, and some of the exercise to help you, and the diet and those aspects to help you to manage and ride through the stresses. But how do you balance the personal life, the son, the daughter, the husband, and having time to enjoy being with them?
Yeah, it's not a brilliant balance, I have to be honest.
You're not the only one to say that.
Yeah, it's I can't say yes, it's all swimming on the top and I can make time for my family and friends. I mean, I've tried to put limits into the evening, because I was answering messages up to 10:30 at night, getting back to people, and I'm trying to stop at 9. At least on social media, and responding to people.
Right.
Because then you just don't turn off for the next hour anyway.
Exactly.
And I'm trying to get to bed earlier. I used to kind of watch a film that was my relaxing thing. I'd watch a film till 11, and then by the time I go to bed, I might read a bit, and then it'd be 11:30, and that'd be midnight before I come to sleep. So now I try and go to bed at 10. And then I'm just a lot more refreshed in the morning. Having to be fairly strict on having a drink during the week. Like I used to like a glass of wine, and especially if I was stressed, I might turn to wine. But I try not to do that anymore. I'll try and keep it to the weekend.
And is that because it impacted how you felt the next day? And I'm not suggesting hangovers in that, but just in terms of tiredness, or that you felt that it was having a negative impact on your overall feeling? Or is it just that you don't feel you can enjoy it as much? Or I find that it really makes me feel quite groggy, and I don't mean I'm was getting steaming drunk. No, and that, yes,
no,
we're not talking steaming drunk every night.
Just to say.
But I know, so I actually stopped drinking several years ago for no well, basically I decided I would rather eat my calories than drink them.
Yeah.
And what I found is that now if I have, and when I say a teeny bit, I do mean a teeny bit, like maybe even just a sip or two, the impact that it has on me is fairly immediate. So as you say, it's not that I'm drunk or anything, but I feel how it's impacting my reactions. And so I rarely do have anything, even though every once in a while I really miss port.
Time for that at Christmas.
Exactly. But so that's why I was wondering, it's, and I can understand that it can impact you and just feeling a bit groggy or having those.
I think it has a big impact, actually. It sounds really hilarious, but the fitness person, Steve, I was talking about, he runs this project called the Hot Body Project.
Right.
It's a funny name, but he's got a sense of humour with it. He's not.
It works.
It works. But you do 3-week program without alcohol, and you take out sugar. So you take out all the things that are kind of stopping your body functioning at its best. Every day you kind of hurl abuse at your body, and this takes it away. And oh my goodness, the difference you feel, like just drinking, like your guy Andrew, the other who you interviewed, talking about how much water you drink.
Yes.
Like I try and drink 2 litres a day. That's my goal. And that makes a huge difference. And just noticing that your skin suddenly starts glowing naturally. Like you don't have to plaster it with hundreds of pounds worth of cream. You can actually create that just through your eating habits. And I was getting up sort of exercising. So to fit the exercise in, I will do it at 6:30 in the morning.
Right. So,
yeah.
Sorry, I'm looking horrified.
But that is how I try and fit it in. It's before the kids get up. And then it's done for the day, and I feel great. I've woken up properly.
You know that
and I don't do that every day on an ongoing basis, but I try and do it 3 days a week, and that's how I fit it in. Because usually by the end of a working day with the shop, I'm too knackered.
And I understand that, because when I was working, especially in corporate, and trying to fit it in at the end, and for me, it was really difficult because I am most definitely not a morning person. So I am very slow in the morning. I'm just, so some colleagues of mine at a place I used to work at, if they wanted to have a meeting where I wasn't quite with it, they'd schedule it for 8 a.m. And they knew I'd make it there, but I maybe wouldn't be as sharp as I would have normally been. But so that for me was difficult, because I knew I wasn't going to make it to do anything in the morning before I went to work. And by the time I came home, I was exhausted. So as you
say, to be honest, if someone had told me I would be doing this a year or so ago, I'd have laughed at them, because this is something I've got into in the last 6-7 months. And we were doing, boot camps in the snow this year several times. As you know, it's been snowing half the year. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm out in the snow and I'm freezing cold and I'm doing press-ups.
But I'm here.
Into the snow. But yeah.
Okay, officially mad.
Yeah, officially mad for sure. But it's made a huge difference, and also giving me strength to make better decisions, actually, because I'm not feeling emotional and tired constantly, and so the decisions are coming from a bad place.
Yes, and more reactive, more trying to react as opposed to think ahead. And I know it's something that I'm doing is also but he's more of a nutritional coach, but they touch on all aspects of your behavior. So one of the things that it's covering at the moment is sleep rituals, and trying to, as you said, not going to bed necessarily. They're not actually, they don't. It's quite an interesting one, because what they don't tell you is you have to do this. It's very much, okay, well, you decide on a bedtime, and then when you decided that, these are the things to consider to try and make sure that you're ready to go to sleep at that time. And it's all routine. Yeah, exactly. And it is all very much about making very small changes. And for me, that actually works, because I know that I've been in places where I've made very fast changes and they haven't stuck.
Right. I wouldn't say to someone, crack on and start getting up at 6:30 and doing your workouts and, start having a green smoothie at breakfast, which is what I do. But these habits have kind of formed over the months, and some lapse and some get better. But doing sort of concentrated hot body projects long enough to develop a habit.
Yes.
And then I tend to redo it every so often as a refresher, and then you pick up another couple of habits. And so gradually you're treating yourself better.
And that's what I'm expecting to happen with this that I'm doing. So the program itself is actually a year, and I expect to be on it for at least 2 years, because I know that there are things that I'm not doing right now, and I'm not worrying about them. But then hopefully by the time I come around to it the second time, I'll be able to, okay, actually, because I've already done these things, I can now pick up, as you say, on those extra habits. And it is that gradual shift, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it's, I don't think it should all happen immediately.
No, it shouldn't be instant. Sorry, we'll just pause for a second as my laptop, which is theoretically recording us, apparently can't recognize me anymore.
Oh dear.
Oh no, it's okay. We're still recording. Phew.
Okay. Phew.
It would be terrible to discover that we'd lost it all. I don't trust it when it goes to sleep.
No, I know. I can understand that.
So we'll keep moving it. So how do your children feel about it? So apart from your son, who's feeling missed out because he's not on the 2 decks, how do they feel? Do they feel a sense of ownership around the shop? Does it feel like theirs?
Yeah, they love it, and they come in and they run around the place, and I try and control them, and then they pick up everything that's new and ask if they can have it, and slowly try and tell them to have a piece a month, or have to save their pocket money, and not just tempted to give it to them all in one go or anything like that. And I think they're quite proud of it. They talk to their friends about it at school. And my children's school is local to the village. And so once a year we have all the school children in reception year come and visit the village, and they visit the different shops. And the ones that always love coming to Two Ducks. Because we let them do silly things like how many of them can fit in the changing rooms in one go. And
how many can?
About 10, I think. I think we got in last time. And give them all stickers when they leave. And yeah, they were great this year. They were so funny. They asked really cool questions.
And it's so interesting seeing things from a child's perspective as well.
Yeah.
As you say, just the angle that they think of things is often completely different.
Yeah.
And sometimes quite random.
Yeah. Yes, very random.
Claire and I digressed for a moment. It was just before summer, so we ended up talking a little bit about what was happening in the summer months, and I decided that that's not really relevant for you as you're listening now in October. But I did want to share with you some of her upcoming events. So she's got a number of events starting through November leading up to Christmas, and the one that is coming up next is on November 1st, and it's all about party season and helping you to solve your styling dilemmas. So it's Thursday the 1st of November from 7:30 till 10:30, and you can book tickets at Eventbrite. I'll put a link into the show notes for you. You can also look Claire up at Facebook for Two Ducks as well, and I'll put those links into the show notes as well. And what they're going to be doing, it's really great actually. She's got a professional stylist, Emma Shue, who is going to be coming along, and she's going to be helping you to learn about what styles are flattering for your body shape, how to update your look using accessories, the top 5 party trends, and how to use them in your outfit, which shoes and jewelry work best with your outfit, and having confidence when you're glamming it up. Added to that, you can come along and enjoy a glass of fizz, and really just a great evening. As I said, I've been to some of Claire's events before, and it's just a really warm and wonderful shop with lots of interesting things and lovely people generally who come along as well. So Claire and I are just going to wrap up now. You'll notice that we're kind of finishing off the end of our conversation, so it might feel a teeny bit disjointed before you go into this next bit, but bear with us. Fantastic.
Lovely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deborah. It's been great fun.
No, I've really enjoyed it. It's really interesting to learn about what you're doing.
Crazy
as well.
business I'm running.
I've been in conversation with Claire Leigh of Two Ducks, a wonderful gift shop in St.John's Village, Woking. I hope that you've enjoyed our conversation, and you can find Claire's gift shop and more information on it on Facebook. Just look for Two Ducks Gifts, all one word. All of the links and additional contact information for Claire can be found in the show notes. Next week, I'll be joined by Richard Maybury. Richard is known as Mr. Productivity by many of his clients, and he's the owner of Attitude Solutions. Have a great week, and I will be back next week. Don't forget to check out the flash briefings. The number of people listening to podcasts is increasing year on year as people look to break free from their screen and consume information on the go. If you'd like to know more about podcasts, then please go to whatsthisIhear.bridginggaps.uk. Are you considering your own podcast? Why not check out So You Think You Want Your Own Podcast? It's an online course that introduces you to everything that's involved in hosting a podcast, as well as working with you to define your own podcast concept. You can get more information on it at startyourownpodcast.bridginggaps.uk. Bridging Gaps, the business podcast, was produced by Deborah Levitt of Bridge Road Consultants Limited, with original music provided by Pete Dineley.
You've been listening to Deborah Levitt on Bridging Gaps, the business podcast.